Welcome to Mastery Fractional CFO's Punchy podcast, short, impactful podcasts where I speak with business leaders from all walks of life about business. I'm your host, Ryan Chenier. My company is Mastery Fractional CFO Services. I'm the founder and CEO of the company. And today I've got with me Hanny Mahari. Did I pronounce your last name right, Hanny?
Yes, that's correct, Ryan.
And Hanny is the founder and CEO of a cell phone company called Hannymobile. Now, Hanny, I'd like you to tell us about who you are and what you do. And you can talk about any aspect of your business or your background, but go ahead and give us a bit of an overview and we'll go back and forth from there.
Yeah, thanks. So Ryan, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on the podcast. It's amazing to be on here, and I really appreciate it. So yeah, my name is Hanny Mahari. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I run a cell phone business called Hannymobile. We specialize in we buy and sell phones. We also fix phones. And the past couple months, I do wholesaling. So we help a lot of phone shops. We supply them with phones and at Samsungs. But yeah, how I really started was I started in 2019. I think we all know the pandemic. It was kind of an eye opener for me at that time because everybody was at home, and it was one of those things where I needed to try something different. And how I explored business was through the stock market. So originally, it started with me reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was kind of the mindset shift. That was the book that really installed a lot of the principles that I've learned now. And I just stumbled upon that book because one of my friends was telling me, "Hey, you need to start reading books. Maybe you can give this book a call, Rich Dad Poor Dad. You should go and check it out." And I'm like, "Okay, let me read this book." And yeah, that book just kind of gave me a lot of the ideas, and it sparked the mindset shift. And so in that book, Robert was talking about the stock market, real estate, and financial literacy. So I picked the stock market because I knew the level of entry was very low because you needed $0 to get into the stock market. So I picked that, and then yeah, I was doing that for about, I say, 3 years. Along the journey, I started getting into day trading as well too. So in about 3 months, I realized that okay, how do I actually make consistent money using the stock market? And so I got into day trading. So I was pretty much looking at the market every single day. I would wake up looking at what the Dow Jones is doing, the Nasdaq, the S&P 500, trying to pretty much predict where the market is going to go. And it's a very complicated game because now you're competing against hedge funds. You're going up against guys that are making millions of dollars, billions of dollars. So it taught me a lot about myself, the discipline, the like the mindset of like never giving up. So the market was a great experience. So that's kind of a little bit of how my journey started. And then the past 2 years is how Hanny Mobile was able to establish, which is now it's a cell phone business because I realized I needed to be able to offer a service. And because when I was trading the market and I was investing, I wasn't I was just pretty much sitting down on my desk and just trading the market, trying to see if it's gonna go up or down. But I realized I need to be able to sell a product. And the past 2 years, Handy Mobile established, and the same thing again. That business model really just started with me, being a learner, being a student, and wanting to start something new. We always hear these ideas of Shopify, e-commerce. People are making money online, so I've always kind of wanted to sell a service, and that's how it happened. And then it just, that business model started, and then just took action, and it just kind of took off.
Let me ask you a little bit about the cell phone business then. So are you buying used phones and fixing them up and selling them, or tell me exactly what you're doing so that I fully understand.
Yeah, exactly. So pretty much what we're doing is we're buying devices, and where we're getting phones from, especially when I first started, was through utilizing Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji. So that's kind of how really it started the journey of me, because a lot of times too, in business, people think that you need a lot of money to get started, but there's so many platforms out there nowadays. They already have systems in place. You could just use their platform to be able to sell your product. And yeah, I was able to do that. So I would buy something for $100 on Marketplace, a used device. Someone that probably just they think that it doesn't really have a lot of value in it, so I would take it. I might fix it up and try to resell it. So that's kind of how the business really started.
So you're looking for people to give you used cell phones that they're not using anymore. That's what you look for. And you look on Facebook Marketplace. Do you have another way of attracting those kinds of used phones?
Yeah, so in the beginning, we were doing a lot of Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji. But then, of course, once the business started establishing, I realized that, we all know in business, it's about relationships and getting to know people. So I went out there on the marketplace. I realized I have to go and tell people what I do, what is my service, and
Mhm.
uh, I went out there and started networking, and I realized I found so many connections, and people were able to sell me their devices just because of word of mouth and what we really stood for, and people saw that I was genuine, and they just kept referring me to people, and next thing you know, I get one connection, one person could sell me 50 devices or 60 devices, so yeah.
Yeah, and that's a very important part of business, and you're particularly good at it, Hanny. So, for our listeners or viewers out there who don't know, Hanny also facilitates Hanny's Lounge at Atkins Business Center in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And Hanny, tell us a little bit about that because that's an interesting thing as well.
Yeah, for sure, 100%, man. So when I started in business, I realized that because once I started to see a little bit of success in my business and I started making some money and I started working with people, I realized there was a shift in a sense where the mindset shift where a lot of people that were in business, they weren't really focusing on people. But I realized that if I can make a little bit of money and then be able to get people along the journey with me to help them out as well too. So I feel like they say I have this mantra called each one teach one. Pretty much it means that if you get knowledge and information, why not share that knowledge and information with somebody else? And if they get that information, they can pass that to somebody else out. So it's like the ripple effect ultimately. And so that was really it kind of really helped me out, especially in the beginning of my business. And I never felt like I needed to hide information. So if I was making money in my cell phone business, and you were in the same business model, and I wasn't afraid to share my knowledge, because at the end of the day, we can all make money together, because we all know the world, there's so much money to go around. We don't have to hide money. So I've always kind of seen it like that, and most people didn't. So I really, when I saw that I had that mindset, which is the abundance mindset, I realized that, okay, why not take this to the community? So I took the initiative right away to be like, okay, I'm already established a little bit, let me see if I can bring people together, and we could talk about entrepreneurship and business and how to get into the different side hustles, and see if they can ultimately shift their mindset. Because one thing I realized, especially in business, is that if somebody gets into a business, they're not just getting into it to make money. They're getting into it to change, to become a better individual. And ultimately, my thing now is like, how do I get somebody to go from, say for example, somebody that's in the street, somebody that has $0, that doesn't have no information. How do I help them become a better individual? And I think one way we can do that is by business and letting them know that the possibilities. And of course, one way to do that is using personal development. I'm really big on that. And so I rather have the people that the community that are around me, to tell them to come to these networking events, network, and see the opportunities that are out there to be able to expand in life, because we don't want to just be kind of just stagnant. And so that's kind of how it started. And then yeah, it started with literally with three people showing up at my first event, and then I saw that, hey, I need to go out there and connect with top leaders that are in the entrepreneurship world. So I had a guest speaker like Maddie from Mad Socials, who has a massive social media following. She was able to get on, real estate investors. And like yourself, Ryan, you were able to come to the Hanny Lounge, and you made an impact. Like people, a lot of times too, what happens is that I've seen this, especially in my journey, where there's people out there who are going to try to sell you information, right? And every time we're always getting sold. Somebody's always trying to sell you something, right? But like oftentimes, especially where I'm from, people are always trying to harm us, in a sense where they're trying to sell us information that doesn't really give us any value. But why not give somebody the right value and the right tools to be able to guide them? So when you came in and you talked about business, how to grow your business, this is actually important. This is what we have to learn, instead of people always trying to sell us like insurances, or there's always this whole thing of network marketing. There's so much of that going on nowadays. So it's about getting the right information from the right people. And that's kind of where when I went out there to look for people, you're one of them, and I saw the value that you're bringing. So I'm like, why not put him on the Handy Lounge and see what he can do? And people couldn't believe it. They felt like, they were like, oh man, it's so much information that, thank you so much. So the appreciation was really felt, once you left the room. So yeah.
Oh yeah, and thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun. I mean, I agree with you. I think that what goes around comes around, or you reap what you sow. If you help other people, it's karma. Good things come back to you. I believe in that, and I believe that also. I think this is along the lines of what you're talking about. If you're sharing ideas and you're learning ideas from other people, business becomes more fun. I've always said business is about people. People are about relationships, and if you have relationships with people, it's enjoyable. And if you're enjoying yourself, you're not really working, right? You're just living life to the fullest. I like to look at it that way, and I share your thoughts on that. Let me ask you, Hanny. I'm interested because we've talked about Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji and the way you'd gather used phones. Do you ever go to businesses and try to gather used phones or anything like that from them, or is that something you haven't bothered with yet, or you've tried it and you didn't like it? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, no, we do. So I once, like I said, I'm big into connections. So one thing that I realize is, especially when you're getting into business, of course, you have to go out there and contact people. But I realize I already have the skill. Why not, start doing outreaches? So I started reaching out to people, for example, people that are in Toronto, people that are because Toronto is a massive market. So and then
Absolutely.
the USA. So I started reaching out to people in the States to see if they want to sell me devices and that kind of thing. So I've established kind of like a little bit of a network, what I mean, across the Canada, so Vancouver. So I have people that are selling me devices in Vancouver, in Toronto, because ultimately, I tell people like without phones we can't really make money. So and without leads, then you don't have a business. So we have to be able to generate leads, and that's how I realized that I need to find somebody that can sell me a lot of devices, and so that's one way that I do it now. I focus more on paid ads and pretty much just outreaches instead of just like going on Facebook and trying to negotiate. Spending 8 hours. I was doing that a lot in the beginning, of course, like
Yeah.
but now it's about how do you kind of save time, be able to just ultimately create more connections and help more people.
Now, do you have enough inbound used phones, or do you need more of those, or are you looking more now for people who want to buy the refurbished phones? What's the area where you need to focus at this stage?
Yeah, right now, I think the way I see it is like um, I do a lot of wholesale now. Like the past, like I probably say 5 months, I've transitioned more into wholesaling, and I like wholesaling because it's like you're creating a win-win situation for like business owners. And yeah, of course, I like going to the customer, but ultimately the focus for me, not like wholesaling, is kind of like my exit strategy because I'm already kind of good at marketing. I'm good at building relationships, so I like using that dynamic to be able to ultimately help more people. But yeah, it's that's kind of where I am now. I'm still going to customers. I still have like repeated people that come back to me and buy devices, but that's what we really focus on now.
Right. So you get the used phones, and then you're selling them to somebody who would this be like a bricks and mortar store, or somebody who's got an e-commerce business, or what kind of a wholesaler would buy from you?
Yeah, so currently right now we're working with about 13 phone shops in the city.
Okay.
So that's anywhere from guys that have three, four, or five like mobile stores here. And yeah, it's a lot of B2B transactions, business to business transactions, people, phone shops, even resellers, people that are selling on Facebook Marketplace. We also help them out as well too.
Okay. So you've got really two client or target markets. You've got the people who are selling the old phones, and the people who are taking the phones from you and selling them to retail clients ultimately. And so you're the middleman, you're the wholesaler. So what's your vision for your business, Annie? Where would you like to be in, say, like 2 years versus 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Uh, I think for the vision for the business is just to be able to expand. And yeah, like I said, I do have that relationship. I do have that network. I do want to become like the top, you know, a wholesaler in the city of Canada. I probably say all around Canada, and be able to, be that guy for iPhones and Samsungs. Because like I tell people all the time, like people ask me like, why phones? Like why did you get into that business? I tell people like people need phones more than transportation. Like people need phones all the time. People are
Yeah.
always on their phones, social media. And the crazy part is too, there's a lot of tangible things that people don't know about phones is that people break their phones all the time. So, we have customers come to us like, oh, like they'll buy a phone today, for example, and then next thing you know, tomorrow it ends up dropping and breaking because it's very fragile. So there's that dynamic as well too, where you're seeing it all the time. Yeah, the vision with Hanny Mobile and kind of where I want to take it is just pretty much be like, create a shift in the marketplace and knowing that, you can help more people. And I think one way to really do that is with wholesaling and being able to supply. For example, if I can tap into the US market, being able to be over here with phones, it'll be remarkable for me. So I'm not just stopping in Canada. I feel like I'm trying to expand all overseas as well too. If so there's a possibilities of that happening, but of course, like it comes down to building connections. It comes down with bringing value in the marketplace, and it's gonna take time. But I'm willing to kind of really just figure it out and stick to it. And sky's the limit, because I feel like with this business model, it can really go. It's just a matter of really finding that niche.
Yeah. Okay, what would your message be to anybody who's maybe watching this or listening to this, or anybody at all who's got used phones and they're wondering what to do with them? Why should they send them to Hannymobile? Like, what would your message be to somebody who's considering using you?
Yeah, yeah. No, I always say, man, if you got phones laying around the house, why just throw them in the trash? Why not turn them into cash, right? So we can take your devices and turn them into to cash. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who have devices laying around their house that I mean, maybe they think it's not really worth as much, right?
What's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you, Hanny, if they say they've got an old phone, they want to get it fixed, or they want to sell it, or what have you? What's the best way for them to look you up?
Yeah, so the best way would be on social media platforms, like everything is pretty much Hanny Mahari on Instagram, on Facebook, all that. And then yeah, you can contact me right directly as well too. I'll give you my phone number as well.
Okay, fantastic. So I know I'm connected with you on LinkedIn and Facebook, and you're on Instagram, you said, and all the rest of them.
Yeah,
So that's
correct.
good.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
You can find Hanny that way if you're looking for him, and you should, because what did you say? What does it turn it into cash? Why
Yeah,
throw
yeah.
why
Yeah.
throw it in trash? Just turn it into cash. Go ahead and use
Yeah.
it too.
Yeah, instead of letting your phone just turn into dust, why not turn it into cash, right? Instead of it just being laying around and turning into dust, take your money and turn it into cash.
Makes
Take your
sense.
device, turn it into cash.
Makes sense. Okay, no, that
Yeah,
sounds good, Hanny. All right, we've reached the point in the show, Hanny, where I give you the opportunity to ask me, a fractional CFO, any question about business. What's the question you've got for me?
yeah, for sure, Ryan, most definitely. My biggest question is, especially for small business owners or entrepreneurs, how does somebody manage cash flow? That's something like we're not really thought about, especially when we get into business. There's a lot of dynamics. People will make, say, for example, you might make 30K, 40K, but how do you actually keep a lot of that money and that cash flow going in that business?
Cash flow management is a challenge for a lot of businesses, especially as they grow. I mean, in the early days, it's not as much of a deal. Having cash to begin with might be an issue, but managing the way cash flows in your business isn't as difficult when you got one invoice going out and maybe a couple of bills going out every month. But as your business begins to grow, it can become more challenging. It can also be more challenging if you're looking to grow quickly and you're taking on some debt. So you're borrowing money, and then you're investing in the infrastructure for your business to grow. And it could be machinery, it could be facility costs, it could be employee costs, wages. But when you grow your business, you have to look at cash differently from the way you look at your profit and loss, for example, because cash moves differently from the way your invoices move and the way your bills move. So I'll explain it to you like this. If you have an invoice for $100,000 that you send out to your client today, that's $100,000 of cash you're going to receive. And if you have to pay a whole bunch of employees to fulfill on that invoice, that's going to cost maybe $50,000. But the issue is that you've got to pay those employees like next week or within 2 weeks or something like that. You're going to have payroll every 2 weeks, but you're not going to collect on that invoice for about 30 days, depending on what your terms are to your clients. But you can see that the timing of cash becomes an issue. Technically, you're profitable. $100,000 invoice, $50,000 of labor costs, you've got $50,000 of profit, all other things being equal. But that $50,000 of profit isn't $50,000 of cash. It's $100,000 of cash next month and $50,000 of labor or wages you owe next week. So cash flow management becomes an issue. And what that really involves is understanding when the cash is going to be coming in. So understanding what your cash inflows are, understanding what your cash outflows are, and understanding the timing of these different components of cash flow. Getting that right can be very challenging. And in a profitable business that's growing, like in my example there, in some cases you have to prepare for the fact that you're not going to have cash when you need it, even if you're profitable. So fundraising may come into play. You may want to go into debt. You may want to have a line of credit. You may have to invest personal funds in the business to protect against these cash flow dips or cash flow risks. As a business grows, that's critical. And the best way to plan for that or to manage that and deal with that is to forecast your cash. So you want to put together a cash flow forecast, which really it can be as simple as a spreadsheet that helps you understand which cash flows are coming in, which are going out, and when. But as I said, it's not the same as profit and loss forecasting. So a lot of times when people forecast, they're thinking about, well, if I sell this much and I pay this much, I make this much bottom line. As in my example, cash flow forecasting is different than that. So there's ways to do that using software that's for more advanced businesses, and we can help companies do that. That's a big part of what we do. But even if you've got a simple small company, you can do it on a spreadsheet, but you really have to understand when the cash is leaving and when the cash is coming in. And don't be alarmed if you're going to be short on cash. It doesn't mean your business isn't successful. It just means that the timing of cash is not in line with your profits. And you need to really manage in advance for that. If you manage proactively in advance, if you're understanding when the cash flow challenges might be in advance, then you can prepare in advance and it won't be a problem. And to grow your business, you're going to need to get good at that because there will be times when cash flow is an issue. Maybe not in the very, very beginning, but it will come eventually. There's a lot of discussion that I could have with you about cash flow management. There's a lot of examples of different things that can happen and different ways you can manage it. I will say this because it's critically important to understand the strategic next steps in your business and whether or not you can afford them or whether or not you can manage them. You need to understand their impact on cash. So whenever we're dealing with a relatively small company that's growing and they might be considering a strategic decision like, should we hire that next employee, or should we move into that new facility, or should we buy that new piece of equipment? I always want to make sure that they're looking at their cash flow forecast and not their profit and loss. Well, both, honestly, but the cash flow forecast is the one that they don't normally think about in advance. But if you want to hire a new employee, but you can't afford to pay them now, then maybe you should put it off. It's a matter of timing. Okay. That's the big thing. So if you build out a cash flow forecast, you can use it as a decision-making tool that'll help you understand, when can I afford to do these things? Like, for example, if I want to hire a new person, can I do that this month? Well, no. I've got that $100,000 invoice that's not going to be paid until next month. Can I afford it next month? Well, yeah, maybe I can. If you build out all the different cash inflows that you're expecting, including that $100,000 receivable that you're going to get for the invoice, and you're including the labor expenses and whatever expenses you've got, you can see what the impact is going to be on your cash flow. And that gives you clarity way in advance. And it becomes a planning tool that you can use for the next few weeks, the next few months, and ultimately the next few years. We, in some cases, with some companies, if they're struggling from a cash flow point of view, we'll do a weekly cash flow forecast. I've even done a daily cash flow forecast with companies. Many companies will go through extreme challenges because of their cash flow situation. Ultimately, you have to be profitable too, but the cash flow will kill you before the lack of profit will, typically. And so it's really important to manage it closely.
Yeah, no, that kind of hits it on the ball there. It's because the cash flow forecast really makes sense. Because yeah, especially for small business owners, because in the beginning you could be making X amount of dollars, but then once you start getting employees and now you start spending more money, that's when I think things can really tracking those metrics could really help. I think, yeah. So thanks for explaining that, Brian.
Yeah, I'll say once a company of almost any size starts using a cash flow forecast and really understanding how it works and using it to make decisions, they can't believe that they didn't do it before they started. It's one of those things that it becomes a no-brainer. Once you're looking at your cash flow forecast and using it to run your business, it helps so much, and you can't imagine going back and not using one. And yet most businesses out there aren't using them. It's almost it's what I would call a no-brainer for a business that's looking to grow to use a cash flow forecast. But the majority of businesses out there, they're not using them. Not until they're getting larger and it's becoming a must-have. Like once you're at the point of having $2 or $3 million in annual revenue, you're doing some cash flow forecasting, or else you're suffering a great deal from cash flow challenges. One of the two. So I say do the forecasting, and it'll keep you away from the challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hanny, if there's anything else you'd like to tell our audience, any advice you'd give to an entrepreneur, or anything you'd like people to think about, anything, it could be philosophical, personal development, whatever. What note would you like to leave us on today?
Yeah, for a young entrepreneur that's listening to this, I'd probably say, man, just get started and then kind of figure it out as you go. Because a lot of time, because where I came from, I come from, where people are consistently, are dying. So we come from places where it's not the best. So when we come to Canada, I feel like you have the opportunity to create something, and I like this idea of creating something meaningful where your family and the people around you could your family people around you could look at that and be like, he actually created something meaningful. So I feel like with business it really makes sense, but ultimately knowing that you're gonna go through those obstacles, you're gonna go through those challenges, but as long as you get started, you can figure it out as you go. So a lot of time people are just they don't know where to get started, but it's like I mentioned in the beginning, find a mentor, find people that are like-minded individuals, people that want to help you and succeed. And it's available not to be able to start something or get into or have that mindset spark, because at the end of the day, they say iron sharp as iron. So if you hang around people that are talking about the goals and the things that you want in life, that's what you're gonna get. So for me, that's what I'm really big on. I'm big on like making sure that I hang around the right people, and I have the mentors, and because you don't want to be listening to people that don't have the results, people that don't know where they're going. So that's one thing that I could say, especially to any new entrepreneur, that there is always a light at the end of the tunnel, in a sense where, especially as small business owners, we feel like we're consistently being stuck, or we don't know we can't grow, and or we don't know where to go. But then you can have someone like Ryan come at the Hanny Lounge, and he could speak and tell you how to grow your business, how to maneuver, and how to like pretty much utilize these tools and these systems to be able to succeed. And so it's for anybody that's new, like it's out there, but you have to go out there in the marketplace. You have to create value. You have to get in front of people, and that's kind of the biggest challenge of most people, is that you're not gonna sit at home and think things are gonna happen. Like it's you got to go out there and make it happen. So anything is possible. Like I said, I don't come from money, or I don't come from a place where I have everything figured out. I kind of seen it early on. I knew that growing up, I seen my mom. We came here, she was a single parent mom, so I came here. We literally were, at one point we were homeless, so we didn't have any money for about 3-4 months. So there was a lot of that struggle in the beginning, and she was working 3 jobs. So about at the age of 16, I had to literally jump in there and help her out. So I had no choice. So that's kind of the mindset that I had early on, is that nothing is going to be given it to you. So you have to go out there and take it and be able to and do whatever it takes to help somebody else out. And for me, I always like to talk about, find your why. What's your why in life and in the business? For me, it's about family and being able to serve people and help them. And so that's kind of the trajectory, like, understand where you're going, but then have that roadmap. So, because, somebody can, like myself, who's an immigrant, can start with $0 and make something meaningful in Canada, instead of, where most people that I know, or my culture, they come here oftentimes and they're consistently like getting distracted, or they fall into the wrong environments. So, and I've seen it a lot, especially where I grew up in. I've seen a lot of my friends go through gangs and get involved in things that didn't really make sense, and some of them ended up dying, in that road. So I've seen a lot of that happen, and it's unfortunate, but I try to make sure that that doesn't happen, because I know that my mom came here from a third world country, war happening. We don't want to come over here and make that even worse, right? So knowing where you came from and being able to change that trajectory. And I think with business, you're able to kind of leave a legacy behind for the family and the people that you came here with. Because I always tell people, like, we don't come to Canada to be poor or to starve. We come here to create opportunity, to make change. So uh, that's one way to do it. Is it's with business and being able to personal development, like getting to become the best version of yourself, and connecting with like-minded individuals, people that are going towards the same mission and goals as you are. And ultimately, you just gotta find your tribe, and and then you figure it out as you go. But get started, take action, and just go after what you believe is true.
There's a lot of wisdom in what you just said, Hanny. Thank you.
Yeah, most definitely, Ryan.
Okay. And to our viewers out there, if there's something that you found interesting on this podcast, please share it with somebody else, and they will benefit as well. Other than that, that's it for our podcast today. So thanks again for joining us, Hanny, and thanks for our listeners and or viewers for checking us out. We look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Ryan, for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it, man. It goes a long way, especially a young entrepreneur in business, and being able to get this opportunity is it's amazing, man. So I really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. Thank you.